Oh, I didn't do me saying that, but yeah.
I was born at home on the 16th of April 1954 on a Good Friday.
Aha.
It was already thought by the GP that there was something wrong with me before I was even born, and he wanted to be at my birth, which he was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite know what time I was born, but I know by the afternoon I was in hospital, in the General Ind Hospital in Norwich, waiting to have an operation on my spina bifida to close it.
What do you mean to close it?
With spina bifida, you're born with a hole in your spine
I see.
where
Yeah.
you're. It can be either at the top or the bottom.
Where was yours?
Mine was at the bottom,
Right.
and my parents were told that yes, I lived the operation, but probably I wouldn't live more than 2 weeks.
Right.
But I understand from what my parents told me. I understand I was quite a healthy weight, and I was always hungry.
Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah, so obviously I was hungry, so I matured properly as through my young days. My mum was, of course, very upset about being told that her baby would only live probably 6 weeks and
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be able to do anything.
Is that what she was told?
Yes. Yes.
That must have been
It
devastating.
must have been, yes,
Yeah.
because I had 2 sisters who were teenagers.
Oh, wow.
My mum went 14 years before she had me.
Oh, was that an accident, do you think?
I have no idea. It was a surprise to her, let's put it that way. As she told me once, and she said that to the GP, and he just smiled and said he thought you ought to do a pregnancy test.
Oh, my goodness. How old was your mother when she had you? Can you...
38.
That's not that old.
No.
My goodness, I was 43 when I had my last child. So it's just unfortunate, really.
Yes. You see, in those days, I suppose, I don't know whether disability was more...
Prevalent.
Yeah, prevalent. I don't know.
No. Well, carry on. What can you remember of being a child?
I don't really remember much of my early years. I can remember at 2.5 having to have my hip, my dislocated hip put back, and being in hospital then.
Which hospital was that? Do you know?
I think that was the General Ind in Norwich. I think.
Right,
I don't know definite. And I was in a full plaster of Paris cast, so I couldn't sit up or anything. And I presume that was for 6 or 8 weeks. I don't know.
Right. So you weren't the usual terrible twos baby.
Oh no.
You didn't have the opportunity,
No,
did you?
I had no opportunity then. I think after I came out of plaster and I could move around a bit more, I was a bit more of a terrorist, I think. I know I could go up and downstairs on my bottom. And then I used to crawl to my bed and climb on my bed. I did that till I was 18.
18
years old.
Wow. So you had not elegant, but you had movement.
Yes, which they were very surprised about, because you should be completely paralysed.
I see.
Which I'm not, you see. And but I always think that, well, I like to think that was because I had my operation on the day I was born. Within a couple of hours. I could be horribly wrong, but I like to think that perhaps that was the right thing at the right time then.
Yeah.
And that was surgery that was right for me.
Right. I understand from our chats that you had a lot of surgery that wasn't right for you.
Oh, yes.
Over the years.
Yes. We were guinea pigs in the 60s, I think.
Right.
Although nobody will say that. They just say, oh, medicine's gone on a lot since then.
Right.
I have created once or twice at the doctor's surgery about different things, and she just says, oh, well, surgery has moved on a lot. And I say to her, thank goodness for that. I had 8 operations and should have only had 2
Okay.
out of the 8.
Really?
Yes,
And how was it that your parents agreed to this?
because they were told it was the best thing for you then.
Okay.
We can do this and correct this, and as your daughter gets older, she will be able to do lots and lots more things.
And that did that prove to be the case?
No,
Your mother and your father really relied on the experts.
oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
as it was then for everybody, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
They told your parents and they said, oh, this is the best thing for your daughter or your son. And,
Yeah.
you know, they didn't know, bless them, they didn't know any different.
No.
I know in a later life, my mother used to get a bit cross about it and say, well, you know, if I known, I would never have done that.
Yeah.
But of course she didn't know.
No. Can't be blamed for
No,
it.
no. I would never blame my parents for that. I would blame the consultant who kept me in hospital for 2 years, poking me about, and
Which hospital was that, do you know?
that was Tadworth. Well, it was part of Great Ormond Street in London,
Uh-huh.
but it was their country hospital in Tadworth in Surrey. I spent 2 years there.
Is that where you felt like a guinea pig
Yes.
in that time?
Twice a week.
Right. So they made the journey down to see
Yes. And
Alright.
they didn't have a car.
you? Really?
Yes.
That's commitment, isn't
And
it?
my sister used to come with her friend once a week to see me.
Right. And how old were you then?
I was 9.
You were 9 by
Yes.
then. Okay. So how were you educated?
Oh, I went to the local disabled school.
Uh-huh.
But the first school, because we went up to London then, they suggested that we went up to London so I was nearer to Great Ormond Street.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved up to Essex, and then I went to one school, the first school I went to, and that was for children who were mentally and physically handicapped.
How did you find that?
All I can remember is somebody reading to us all day.
Well, that wouldn't have made you happy because you've
No.
got a brain.
Well, that's it, you see, and I could read and everything before I went to school. This was the difficult part.
Yeah.
And my parents came down to see friends in Galston again. You know, every year we used to come down to see them. And they'd take me to see my GP,
Yes.
who helped bring me into the world. And he was furious. He said, what on earth is she doing at a school like that? He said, she's got brains.
Yes.
He said, she should be learning properly.
Yes.
So my parents, when we went back, they apparently had to go to the education again, and they said, well, there's no other school in that area for disabled children, you'll have to move.
So
So we moved again.
where did you move to? Do you remember?
We lived in Ilford then. First
Right.
of all, we lived in Dagenham in Essex, and then we lived near Ilford, just on the edge of Ilford.
Yeah. How was life for you as a disabled young person? Did you get invited to birthday parties, or did you have any fun things that you did?
Used to go to Brownies.
Uh-huh.
That was at Dr. Bernardo's home in
Right.
Barkingside.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes, I did. I love Brownies, yes.
Yeah.
We used to go away on pack holidays and things. And
Oh, lovely.
yes.
Yeah.
But I had friends at school then,
Yeah.
but we didn't meet up very much because of our difficulties, and lots of people didn't drive then.
That's true, yes, yes.
And public transport was a bit iffy, so...
Especially for the wheelchair.
Yes,
It
yes.
was
I
non-existent for a
didn't-
wheelchair
I
user.
didn't have a wheelchair till I was 5. I used to sit in a pushchair,
Really?
yes.
That must have been embarrassing for you because you were so aware of what your surroundings and
I think I was just glad to get out and about. Really. I never used to take much notice.
Yeah.
Then they brought my mum a big wheelchair. I think they were called Tansad, and they were huge. And my poor mum, even with me being little, she couldn't push it.
Oh.
So in the end, they said, well, she'll have to have a wheelchair then. And that's what my mum said, well, that's what we've been waiting for.
I bet you were scooting around everywhere, weren't
Oh,
you?
yes, yes. But I could walk then, you see, as well.
Really? What?
With calipers and crutches, I could walk.
Did that have a detrimental effect? Your
Yes.
long-term detrimental effect?
Yes.
How did that
damaged my shoulder, my wrist,
Yeah.
and my hip again, really.
Yeah.
And I had a slip disc when I was older because of that. And it was jolly hard work when your legs don't work and you're pulling yourself about and being made to walk.
You were made to walk.
Well, they said that we had to learn to walk. Yeah, they told my parents I had to learn to walk.
Oh, the calipers must have hurt.
Yes, they did. Yes, and crutches do when your hands are and you're small and you've got your hands are sort of not used to those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I used to tell my mother to rub my hands with surgical spirit.
What's that supposed to do?
Harden them up.
Oh my goodness. From 5?
Yes.
Age of 5?
Yes. Yes.
Wow, wow. What's the best thing you can remember about being sort of under 10?
Brownies.
They're brownies. And what's the worst?
Being in hospital and not told what's happening to you.
Right, right. You mentioned something about being made to do sewing. Were you older then?
Oh, when I was at boarding school, that was.
Yeah, who suggested you go to boarding school?
Well, I was in hospital 2 years
Yeah.
and just came home for 2 Christmas days. That's all the time I was home in those 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to my school. By then, they'd got a new premises. There was after-school clubs and things like that. But I don't know. I don't know whether it was from the hospital or from social services at that time. But they said I'd got to learn to be more independent,
Right.
and it would be better for me to go to a boarding school, where I would learn to do more for myself.
Right.
But what they forgot was that I'd just spent 2 years in bed,
Right.
basically.
Right. So when you got to this boarding school, your body wouldn't work, I take it.
No,
And what
and
kind?
I hated it. I hated every day I was there. It was like some sort of Victorian workhouse, more or less.
And what were you made to do?
Well, it's not what we were actually made to do, it's how we were treated that was the
Really?
appalling thing, yes.
How were you treated?
You're only allowed to change your clothes once a week, and remember we were teenagers.
Oh, right.
Our letters were read before they were sent home.
Right.
We were only allowed parcels on a Saturday. We were weighed every week, and if matron thought you'd put on a bit of weight, you were put on her special diets at weekends, which meant you were kept upstairs in your small dormitory, and you were only fed certain foods.
Really?
Yes.
And what about these making of the lavender bags?
Oh, lavender bags.
Is that something you did at that time?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, they had it was a big stately home.
Right.
Where we were, and there was acres of it, and there was acres of lavender.
Right.
And to make money for the school, we had to make the lavender bags after school.
After school?
After school, yes. At
Right.
least once a week for 6 or 7 weeks every summer.
Where were these sold, do you know?
Well, yes, we had a fete.
Oh, at the school?
School, yes,
Right.
and they were sold there.
Were you ever thanked? Were you ever praised?
No, not really. No.
Yeah. And were you ever given the choice whether you did it or not?
No.
No. You mentioned
You were
some...
the senior girls, and that was what you were expected to do, that you're part of keeping the school going.
Right. And you mentioned something about your mother being told at one point that she didn't have to see you if she didn't want to. What was that
yes,
about?
That was my last day at school.
Well, how old were you then?
16.
Right.
And my mum came to pick me up,
Yeah.
because the education used to arrange someone to come and pick me up and take me backwards and forwards to school with my mum.
Yeah.
And one of the teachers not my teacher.
No.
She said to my mum, "Oh well, of course you don't have to take her home, you know." And my mum thought she'd come on the wrong day to start with, and she said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I've come on the right day, haven't I?" "Oh yes, this is the last day of term," she said. "But you don't have to take your daughter home," she said. She can go somewhere where you'd never ever have to see her again. I said to her, "Have you spoken to my husband about this?" And she said, "No." She said, "Well, I suggest you don't."
So you were very, very lucky to have parents that truly loved you.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes.
Yeah. And thought of you as a blessing. Rather
Yes,
than,
yes. And that I was going to be as independent as I could be.
Yeah.
I mean, at 4 or 5, my dad said to me, "Well, I know you have to do things in a different way, but you're going to do the same things as the others do,
Right.
like do the vegetables, wash up, and all sorts of things like that."
Yeah.
And he used to take me to all sorts of places.
Can you remember some of them?
Oh yes, went to the London Zoo quite often. I went to one of the bomb marches.
Really?
Yes.
I've
See
never
them.
been to one of
Oh
those.
yes, I can remember going to that, and I can remember a policeman saying to him, "Do you think you ought to have brought your daughter, sir?" And he said, "Yes," he said, "my daughter's out in the world. She needs to know what's going on around her."
Good man.
Yeah, he was a good man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good
So,
man.
to be honest, you would have learnt a lot more about independence had you been allowed to come home.
Yes, and I would have made friends. Well, I
Yes.
never made friends till I was in my 20s,
Right, right.
when we came back to Galston from living in London.
I see, yes, yes. So, you're a feisty girl now.
Oh yes, I'll fight anybody's battle. Yeah. I was never like that,
No.
but I am now,
Yeah.
because I see so much injustice and I think, hang on a minute, that's not right.
Exactly. You know what it is to be at the wrong side of injustice.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Even though at that time it might have been through ignorance,
Yes.
it still had
It still hurts.
yeah,
In a big way.
yeah. Well, I think we'll leave it there for this week,
Yes,
and
right,
we'll talk to you again next week.
right, yeah.